Welcome back, everybody. Today, we have the opportunity to talk to a really great friend of mine. Chris Weigel is with us today, and Chris has been a friend of mine. I think we've been friends for almost 20 years.
About 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. And Chris is my personal trainer, but I really think of him, more as a great friend and certainly a great psychiatrist, unlicensed psychiatrist.
Thank you.
But today we're going to talk about creating a healthy home. And so, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. So tell us about what you're one of those people to me that you not only talk the talk, but you walk the walk. And even when we were talking about an air purifier the other day, you were like, "Oh yeah, I've got the brand you need to buy. It's that one I've got right over there." So, I mean, that part of our relationship I really find refreshing. So, tell us about how do you create a healthy home environment?
I'll do that. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how they're typically not healthy. Unfortunately, that first segment was so positive, and here I come doom and gloom and tell you all how, we're now self-quarantined and we're breathing in a whole lot of toxic junk, and unfortunately, it's making us sicker and just not well on a daily basis. Even though we don't know, we don't see it, but we're inundated with chemicals in the air, chemicals in the water. More so now than ever. And we can do a lot to take that out of our air, take that out of our water. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today. But there's mold, dust mites, VOCs, mildew, stuff coming out of your furniture. And so you can really have quite a toxic house and not know it.
What can we do to limit that exposure?
So there's 4 key areas. And before I go into that, I want to say that we think of the outdoor air as being quite polluted, and studies have shown that our indoor air is 2 to 5 times more polluted than the outdoor air.
Wow.
And one of the big players in that is off-gassing from furniture. So you've got furniture that's made with foam material that emits dust. You've got things like cleaners and your air fresheners, putting junk in the air that we breathe and irritate our lungs, irritate our organs, and we wind up with everything from allergies and bone loss. There's numerous health ailments because of that.
So when somebody brings like say I go out and I buy a new couch and the new couch comes in, I smell that, that new couch smell for a little while, but then it goes away. So does that continue to emit those toxins over the life
your
of it?
Your drapes, your carpets, electronics. There's a lot. It'll continue to emit. So what we've got to do is filter our air. And so a few recommendations. A HEPA filter for your HVAC system. Upgrade your furnace filters. I highly recommend also a standalone air filter unit, such
That's
as
kind of what we were talking about.
Yep. The Austin air filter, I think we'll display it here in a moment, is my favorite. Filters out 99.97% of everything.
Wow.
Dust mites, mold, allergens, and believe it or not, the coronavirus. I called them this past week and specifically asked them. So, I highly recommend it, and it might just become even more important due to what's going on today.
No kidding.
So those two, for sure. Run that purifier, by the way, 24/7. Avoid household chemicals, as much as you can. And there's so many different things that you can use to clean and degrease and you name it, other than these chemicals that are harmful to our health. So using hydrogen peroxide and vinegar and just soap, you can Google it. There's so many different solutions in which we can make that aren't toxic or harmful to us, whether that be inhaled or on our skin.
Well, that kind of leads to, naturally, I think it leads to water contamination.
Water contamination is probably our second biggest, absolutely. And so we've got runoff from farms in our drinking water. And it doesn't matter if it's community water or if it's well systems. You've got pipes that are emitting arsenic and lead and mercury and other heavy metals that contribute to things like cancer. And I mean, cancer right now, if you're a female, 1 out of 2 females get cancer, 1 out of 3 males, and that statistic's only rising. So, here's an area that's contributing toward that we can do something about.
How do we do that?
Again, filtration. Okay, so I recommend a whole house filtration. This one here is from Aquasana. You get that water right as it comes to the house, and so it's able to filter out that which you drink. It's able to filter out water that you would use, say, to clean vegetables or to cook with, and it filters the shower water. We actually are exposed to more chemicals while taking a shower as chemicals go airborne or inhaled versus drinking water. So that's one option. That takes a little more money and it's a little more work to get that installed. So you can also go with a reverse osmosis water system, and those can either be under the sink or on top of the sink. They're very effective at getting out most of what is undesirable. And going back to that undesirable, there's also fluoride. We put it in our water. Unfortunately, it's a neurotoxin to the body. It's very good if you're applying it to your teeth to prevent cavities. But unfortunately, we're not following up with 97% of Western Europe who agrees that it's a toxin and doesn't put it in their water. So hopefully someday. Meanwhile, get a fluoride filter. Reverse osmosis will filter that out. The other would be pharmaceutical drugs. I didn't talk about that either. Yeah. But we're taking a lot of drugs these days. The average American's on over 3 prescription drugs. And some of that winds up in our urine, in the toilet. It's not able to be filtered by the water municipalities and hence in our drinking water. And is there much of it? No. But do you want any of that?
Any of it, yeah.
Do you want any birth control in your system? Do you want any of these drugs that are for this disorder or that in your system?
I think a lot of people, especially, I think a lot of people sometimes when they're going through that clean out process of the house and they find all the older drugs, they just start flushing
Dump
them.
it down the toilet.
Yeah, and thinking that's gonna, that'll get rid of it, and that's very dangerous.
It's very dangerous, and we can't say, we'll never be able to say, oh, you drank this water that had this drug in it to this minute degree and it thus caused this. Just like with cancer, there's so many things that cause cancer that we can't pinpoint. Well, it was definitely because you used this oven degreaser the other day.
Yeah.
So, but if we take a look at like homeopathy, we understand that it is very small part per million that has an effect on the body. That's how homeopathy works. It works to kind of go under radar. Your body doesn't recognize it, okay? Sort of like what can happen with these pharmaceuticals and other things in the water is your immune system doesn't have enough of that substance to react to it and fight it. And so it gets in there and does who knows what. So back to the reverse osmosis. All right, the other option would be a Berkey water filter that you can get on Amazon. They've got different sizes. You pour the water in, you can get it, I think, up to 3 gallons, something like that. They've got different sizes. Make sure you get the carbon filter. There's some different filter options with it. Then you've got a little spigot, and fill up your water bottles. And that's about a $300 option, depending on which model you go with. That's a real good idea. They also make them for camping, so they're very portable. Or if you're renting, you're not going to be there forever. I guess same with the house. If you don't want to put the investment into the house and leaving it perhaps for the next owner, buy the one to put on the counter.
Yeah.
And then lastly, if you do go with what you might put under the sink or above the sink, you still want to filter that shower water. So get a separate shower filter. Those are pretty common too. Again, all of this you can Google and take a look at what you think suits you best. Certainly some are better than others. So do your research or contact me and I'll be happy to give you my recommendation.
What does, we've talked about kind of everything inside the house. What about outside the house?
Outside of the house can be extremely toxic as well. I mean, on our own property. And that's due to the lawn care that we use, the different pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, rodenticides. I mean, we use 98 million pounds of herbicides as Americans a year. 78 million households use pesticides for their lawns and gardens, and they use them in an amount that's 10 times what a farmer would use per acre. So it's incredible the density that we have of that toxicity within our lawns.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Roundup is probably the most common one, which contains glyphosate. And glyphosate has now been shown by a Department of the World Health Organization to possibly be a human carcinogen. So again, going back to cancer, here's just another way in which we're in contact with something that promotes that. So we want to get away from those chemicals as much as possible, and so there are certainly alternatives to that. And even there's lawn companies. A lot of people don't mess with their own lawn these days, and so we've got lawn companies, but we've got to be very diligent about selecting them. There's a lot of quote unquote green companies that put more into their marketing of being green than their actual practice. So make sure that what they're using on that lawn is 100% all natural, non-toxic. Do put your effort into that. But we can do that ourselves. And by my own experience, some of these alternatives, they're not as effective, or at least immediately, as say Roundup. I had a weed, I remember last summer, and I sprayed something green stuff that I got from Home Depot on it, and expected to come back the next day and see this, sickly weed like I would see if I used Roundup. And instead, he was just staring at me like, "That all you got?"
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I yanked the sucker. So don't get disappointed with some of these alternatives. Give them a try. As a whole, you want to try and create as healthy a lawn as possible. And so really putting the effort into to test your soil, see what it needs. Take a look at habitats for certain insects and make sure you're doing something about them. In general, insects don't want to hang out with healthy lawns, and not as many weeds do as well. You see that in general, just as people take better care of their lawns, there's less weeds, but you might have to pull more. But there's some tremendous health benefits with that. Just taking the time away to do things such as lawn work and gardening, and it can be very meditative. Getting your bare feet in the soil and the negative ions that you get from the earth, and that connectivity, or what they call grounding, can be very beneficial. So
I was talking to a buddy of mine just this last week, and we were talking about, there's a point where you have to kind of figure out how much of your home can you care for, whether it's, do you want to clean the home yourself, or do you want to do the yard yourself, or do you want to do the pool yourself? And everybody in this discussion was agreeing that there's at least one of those things everybody retains, because they do get that connection, the connection to the home and the connection to the earth, and getting out there and getting your hands dirty really does provide calmness, and promotes I think a little bit more internalized well-being.
You want to find that balance, and if you haven't before participated in your own lawn care or gardening, that type of thing, try it. And if it's not for you, if it stresses you out, don't do it. Find somebody to do it, but then do your work to find, all right, what's the best option out there? Because really this all adds up. The toxins in our air, in our water, in our food, on our clothes, skin care. I mean, our shampoos, our deodorant, you name it. I mean, we're just inundated, and there's so many things that you can do to just make a different choice. And I can't tell you today that if you change your deodorant, you're going to live a year longer. But it only makes sense that less is more when it comes to toxicity, right?
Absolutely.
And there's so many ways in which we can make a better choice, including taking a look at our environment within our home and filtering as much as we can. Let the filters do the work. It's not even something you need to deal with when you change those filters in your air conditioning. You've got this little guy going to town on the floor. All right, you made the decision to maybe do a little effort in researching, what unit to get and what have you, but then, you spend the money, you plug it in, and here we go. You're good. So, we tend to be a little lazy, find things just like you might find people to do the work for you.
What about flame retardants? We were talking about how that
Yep.
really.
So another good point, and that's the last point probably for today. And that goes back to kind of off-gassing. But yeah, our furniture, our mattresses, electronics, they're found in all sorts of household goods. And it really starts with choosing that furniture or that mattress that doesn't contain that. Now, there's some things you can do, like you might have heard, to, if you just buy a new mattress, keep it outside for a week or two and let it off gas and not allow that in the house. Again, if you go back to the air filtration, well, you got that working for you.
Yeah.
So that certainly helps. But if you can buy a mattress that instead is wool, that's a natural flame retardant. But there are others that are made of polyester, filled with cotton. Take a look at what your options are there. Same goes for couches and chairs and all that continue to off gas, over the years. You can take a look at mattresses that are 100% organic, cotton, flannel, Kevlar. There's a lot of different. I know Stearns and Foster makes one. There's a lot of options out there.
Wow.
And again, it's tough to get people to make these decisions to buy what might be more expensive or might be less toxic, I think, because we don't see it. It's kind of like the words that are coming out of our mouth here. We can hear them. They're coming, right?
Yeah.
There's a frequency, a vibration to it.
Yeah.
It's here. I mean, the toxins, they're here. But, we don't see them. We don't hear them. And
Or feel them.
don't feel them. And here we are. We're
Yeah.
healthy. We're doing this. And what's the problem? Well, there is a problem down the road. Every year, Americans are fatter and sicker than the year before. And this is just a part of that problem. Obviously, we've got almost a bigger problem here today. And another reason to go pick up that filter and
It is.
sanitize it properly. By the way, if you can't find hand sanitizer, 2/3 of isopropyl alcohol, preferably 91%, at least 70%. 1/3 aloe vera gel, and then pick your favorite essential oil, about 10 drops of whatever that might be. I use peppermint. Shake that up and you're good to go. So
A friend of mine that actually had a homemade hand sanitizer party over the weekend, where she had gotten
Beautiful.
all of the ingredients and
Yeah.
had bought all these little bitty plastic things for them
Yeah.
to go in, and
Yeah.
it was an interesting event, and fun
I'm
to do.
sure there'll be more of those. Who knows? It's non-toxic and healthy living might become a little bit more at the forefront with what's going on.
That's
So.
true, very true. And you have a new gym opening.
I have a new gym opening, probably June. We've been working on it for quite a while. There's been setbacks. This is just another. City closed us down, and gyms like it a couple days ago. So we'll see what happens here. But yeah, there it is. We have the location. We have the sign. It's real. And it's a one of a kind. And going back to what we've talked to today, it really practices what we would preach in working with anybody. Do we have that water filter? Yes, we do. Do we have those air filters? Yes, we do. We'll try to be as non-toxic as possible. All the cleaning products that we use are non-toxic. All the soaps that you'll use are organic and non-toxic. And then as green as we can be. So equipment that doesn't take energy, but with some of it actually feeds back into our electrical grid and helps power the club. It's pretty unique. And there'll be other aspects. Since it's a brand new facility, brand new construction, I could be really intentional about every aspect of the design. So knowing how your environment affects you in so many ways, not just toxicity, but how it feels. You take people into various homes, and it just doesn't feel right for some reason or another. Some people feel like it might be a little too enclosed, chopped up, ceilings aren't high enough, whatever. So the same goes for designing a facility in which you want to promote people feeling good. Well, what is that in terms of shapes? What is it in terms of colors? What is it in terms of the music? Where can you go and feel like it's your getaway from it all? which would be really nice to have right now, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
we don't. But when we do, that's what I hope to create. So a lot of what I've put into practice in my own home and then working with clients, here it is front and center in every way I can show it off and educate people as much as, letting them run on the treadmill or whatever their desire is with exercise. And we also have a lot of services related to nutrition and stress management. It's really a holistic look and an individual approach to, well, how do we make your dreams come true? You come to me with a goals, this is how I want to live it. And Clairevista means clear view. And ultimately what we're trying to do is give people a clear view as to how they live that dream.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on with us today.
You're
That was
welcome.
really interesting. And if you would like to reach out to Chris, he has a wealth of information. We've got his contact information up on the screen. Give him a phone call, send him an email. He's a super responsive guy, and just really enjoyed having him on today.
That was a really interesting show, and listening to Chris, I had an idea. I was like, man, I should design an actual electrical cardio machine that actually produces energy and puts it back into the gym. So, y'all, if this real estate thing doesn't pan out, you know what I'm going to be doing. That, or I'm going to make my own hand sanitizer. So,
Right.
We'll see.
We appreciate you tuning in with us today.
And remember, we want to be your realtors for life.